Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to the ones who's watching this video. We, the VALIENTEs, are here to report about Rizal'S travel, local and abroad. With this information, we'll tell you about what really happened to Rizal after traveling to some different countries in the world. Let us begin.
So here's the part 1 and 2 of Rizal's travel. Part 1, in Binyan and Manila. Marciano brought Jose to the nearby town, Binyan, to attend the school of Maestro Justiniano Aquino Cruz. So he stayed in the town for a year and a half of schooling, except for occasional homecomings. He lived near his aunt's house, where his breakfast generally consisted of a plate of rice and 2 dried sardines, which we called tuyot. So later on, Don Francisco sent Jose to Manila in June 1872 to enroll in Ateneo Municipal. So here, Marciano found a boarding house for Jose in Intramuros, but later on he transferred to Calle Carballo in Santa Cruz. He transferred again the following year in Calle Magallanes. Years after, he became an intern in Ateneo and stayed there until his graduation. Then from 1877 to 1882, Rizal studied in University of Santo Tomas, enrolling in the course of Philosophy and Letters, but shifted medicine a year after. This was after knowing that her mother will become blind. So he boarded in the house of a certain Concha Leyva in Intramuros and later in Casa Tomasina at Calle 6, Santo Tomas, Intramuros. And his landlord uncle in Casa Tomasina was Antonio Rivera, who had a daughter named Leonor that became Jose's sweetheart. So the part 2, in Europe. Rizal stopped attending class at UST in 1882. This was because of being sick and tired of the discriminatory and oppressive Dominican professors in UST. So, on May 3 of that year, he left for Spain to complete his studies. And it is considered as a secret departure because there was only at least 10 sure people, including his 3 siblings, an uncle, Jesuit priests, and intimate friends who only knew and collaborated in his going away. So, on his way to Madrid, he had many stopovers. First, he visited the town of Singapore, then he passed through the Punta de Gales, Colombo, and Aden. He also went across the waterway of Suez Canal and visited the Italian city of Naples and went to Barcelona. So, Rizal left Barcelona for Madrid and enrolled medicine and philosophy and letters at Universidad Central de Madrid on November 3, 1882. So, in Rizal's letter dated February 13, 1883, he informed Marciano of his meeting with other Filipinos. He wrote, "The Tuesday of the Carnival, we had a Filipino luncheon and dinner in the house of the Paternas, each one contributing €1. We ate with our hands boiled rice, chicken adobo, fried fish, and roast pig." So, later on, Rizal became penniless as his family encountered economic regression. But still, on a day in June 1884, Rizal won a gold medal in a contest despite of not having his breakfast that day. So, at night, he attended the feast held in honor of 2 award-winning Filipino painters, Juan Luna and Felix Resurrection Hidalgo. In the occasion, he delivered a daring liberal speech which became so controversial and it even caused sickness to his worrying mother. Perhaps, being broke and hungry could really make one braver and more impulsive. As one student commented, "Hayop man pag gutom, tumatapang." So later in 1885, Rizal, who had finished 2 courses in Madrid, went to Paris, France. November 1885 to February 1886, he worked as an assistant to the celebrated ophthalmologist Dr. Louis de Wickert. So, in February 3, 1886, he left Paris for Heidelberg, Germany. He attended lectures and training at the University of Heidelberg, where he is said to have completed his eye specialization. So, after war, Rizal settled for 3 months in the nearby village, Wilhelmsfield, at the pastoral house of a Protestant pastor, Dr. Karl Omer. This was also the time when the long-distance friendship between Jose and Ferdinand Blumentritt began. Rizal wrote a letter in German and sent it with a bilingual Spanish and Tagalog book, Arithmetica, to Blumentritt. Jose traveled next to Leipzig and attended some lectures at its university. Having reached Dresden afterward, he met and befriended Dr. Adolf B. Meyer, the director of the Ethnological Museum. So, in November 1886, he went to Berlin and further enhanced his skills and knowledge in ophthalmology. And he also even learned other languages and also became a member of various scientific communities. And lastly, on February 21, 1887, he finished his first novel and it came off the press a month later.
Good day, I'm Laika May Mantupar and I'm here to report about Rizal's Europe Grand Tour with Viola. Maximo Viola is Rizal's friend who would later become the patron of Rizal's first novel, The Noli Me Tangere. Rizal's borrowed some money to cover the printing of The Noli Me Tangere, and through Pasiano's remittance, Rizal paid Viola and they decided to explore Europe before returning to the Philippines. They went first in Potsdam, a city southwest of Berlin, which became the site of the Potsdam Conference, at which the leaders of powerful nations deliberated upon the post-war administration of Germany. On May 11, Rizal and Viola left Berlin for Dresden. In Dresden, they witnessed the regional floral exposition, and Rizal wants to visit Blumentritt, so they went to Lemeritz. Professor Blumentritt warmly received them in the Lemeritz railroad station. The professor identified them through the pencil sketch which Rizal had previously made of himself and sent to his European friend. Blumentritt acted as their tour guide, and he introduced them to his friends and family. On May 16, Rizal and Viola left Lemeritz for Prague, where they saw the tomb of the famous astronomer Copernicus. They stopped at Brunn on their way to Vienna. They met the famous Austrian novelist in Vienna, and Rizal was interviewed by Mr. Alder, a newspaper correspondent. To see the sights of the Nube River, they left Vienna on a boat where they saw passengers using paper napkins. From Linz, they had a short stay in Salzburg, and they went to Munich. They tasted the local beer advertised as Germany's finest. In Nuremberg, they saw the infamous torture machines used in Catholic Inquisition. Afterward, they went to Ulm and climbed the Germany's tallest cathedral. In Switzerland, they went to different places before staying in Geneva. Rizal's 15-day stay in Geneva was generally enjoyable, except when he learned about the exhibition of some Igorots in Madrid. On June 19, 1887, Rizal treated Viola, for it was his 26th birthday. 4 days after they parted ways, Viola went to Barcelona while Rizal proceeded to Italy. In Italy, Rizal went to see Turin, Milan, Venice, and Florence. In Rome, he paid a visit to the historical places like the amphitheater and the Roman Forum. My next report will be about Rizal's first homecoming. Rizal was determined to come back to the Philippines because he wants to operate his mother's eye and to serve his people. Rizal left Rome by train to Marseilles, a French port, and boarded Jamna, the same steamer that brought him to Europe 5 years ago. there were 50 passengers, 4 Englishmen, 2 Germans, 1 Chinese, 2 Japanese, 40 Frenchmen, and 1 Filipino. In Saigon, he transferred to another steamer, Haipong, that brought him to Manila. On August 5, 1887, Rizal reached Manila near midnight, and on August 8, 1887, Rizal returned in Calamba. In Calamba, Rizal established a medical clinic, and his mother was his first patient. Rizal was called Dr. Oliman because he came from Germany. Rizal opened a gymnasium for the young people, and he introduced Europeans for sport like fencing and shooting to discourage them from cockfighting and gambling.
Rizal's travel in Hong Kong and Macau, 1888. Hunted by powerful enemies, Rizal was forced to leave his country for a second time in February 1888. He was then a full-grown man of 27 years of age and a practicing physician and a recognized man of letters. Rizal left Manila for Hong Kong on board the Zafiro. February 7, Zafiro made a brief stopover at Amoy, but Rizal did not get off his ship because of 3 reasons. First, he was not feeling well. Second, it was raining hard. Third, he heard that the city was dirty. February 8, Rizal's arrival at Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a British colony, and Rizal's describes it as a small but very clean city. Rizal stayed at Victoria Hotel and welcomed by the Filipino residents, including Jose Maria Basa, Balbino Mauricio, and Manuel Iriarte, the son of Francisco Iriarte, the alkaline mayor of Laguna. Jose Sainz de Baranda, a former secretary of Governor General Terrero, shadowed Rizal's movement in Hong Kong. He was commissioned by the Spaniards authorities to spy Rizal. Visit to Macau. February 18, Rizal, accompanied by Basa, boarded the ferry steamer Kiu Kiang for Macau. He was surprised to see among the passengers a familiar figure, Sainz de Baranda. Macau is a Portuguese colony. According to Rizal, the city of Macau is a small, low, and gloomy. There are many junks, sampans, but few steamers. It looks sad and almost dead. Rizal and Basa stay at the home of Don Juan Francisco Lecaros, a Filipino gentleman married to a Portuguese lady. He was rich and spent his days cultivating plants and flowers, many of which came from the Philippines. 2 days sojourn in Macau, Rizal visited theater, casino, cathedral and churches, pagoda, botanical garden, and bazaar. He saw famous grotto of Camões, Portugal's national poet. In the evening, February 19, he witnessed a Catholic procession. Devotees were dressed in blue and purple dresses and carrying unlighted candles. February 20, Rizal and Basa returned to Hong Kong, again on board the ferry steamer Kiu Kiang. Rizal's experience in Hong Kong. During his 2 weeks visit in Hong Kong, he studied Chinese life, language, drama, and customs, and he wrote his experience in a diary. Departure from Hong Kong. February 22, 1888, Rizal left Hong Kong on board the Oceanic American steamer. His destination was Japan. He did not like the meals on board, but he liked the ship because it was clean and efficiently managed. His cabin maid was a British Protestant missionary who had lived in China for 27 years and knew the Chinese language very well, and Rizal called him a good man. Romantic interlude in Japan. One of the happiest interludes in the life of Rizal was his sojourn in the land of cherry blossoms for a month and a half. He was enchanted by the natural beauty of Japan, the charming manners of the Japanese people, and the shrines. Moreover, he fell in love with a Japanese girl, whose loveliness infused joy and romance in his sorrowing heart. Her real name was Seiko Yusui. Rizal affectionately called her O-Sei-san. Fate, however, cut short his happy days in Japan. He had to sacrifice his own happiness to carry on his work for the redemption of the oppressed people. On February 28, 1888, early morning of Tuesday, Rizal arrived in Yokohama. He registered at the Grand Hotel. Next day, he proceeded to Tokyo and took a room at Tokyo Hotel, where he stayed from March 2 to 7. He was surprised by the city of Tokyo. Tokyo is more expensive than Paris. The walls are built in cyclopean manner. The streets are large and wide. Rizal's in Tokyo. After Rizal's arrival in Tokyo, he was visited at his hotel by Juan Perez Caballero, Secretary of Spanish Legation, and invited him to live at the Spanish Legation. He accepted the invitation for two reasons. First, he could economize his living expenses by staying at the legation. March 7, Rizal checked out in Tokyo Hotel and lived at the Spanish Legation. He and Perez Caballero became good friends. Rizal decided to study Japanese language to avoid further embarrassment. He was able to speak it within a few days. He also studied the Japanese drama, arts, music, and judo. He browsed the museum, libraries, art galleries, and shrines. He visited Meguro, Nikko, Hakone, Miyanoshita, and the charming villages of Japan. Rizal's impression in Japan. First, the beauty of the country, its flowers, mountains, streams, and scenic panoramas. Second, the cleanliness, politeness, and industry of the Japanese people. Third, the picturesque dress and simple charm of the Japanese women. Fourth, there were very few thieves in Japan, so that the houses remained open day and night, and in the hotel room, one could safely leave money on the table. Fifth, beggars were rarely seen in the city streets, unlike in the Manila and other cities. Sayonara, Japan. April 13, 1888, Rizal boarded the Belgic English steamer at Yokohama, bound for the United States. Voyage across the Pacific. On board the ship, he met a semi-Filipino family, Mr. Reynaldo Turner, and his wife, Emma Jackson. One day, one of the children, a bright young boy, asked Rizal, "Do you know, sir, a famous man in Manila named Rizal? He wrote a novel Noli Me Tangere." "Yes, Iho, I am Rizal," replied Rizal. Rizal was already famous at that time. Arrival in San Francisco. April 28, 1888, the steamer Belgic, with Rizal on board, docked at San Francisco on Saturday morning. All passengers were not allowed to land. The ship placed under quarantine because of cholera epidemic. Rizal was surprised because he knew that there was no cholera epidemic at that time in the Far East. He joined the other passengers in protesting the unjustifiable action of the health authorities. He soon discovered the placing of the ship under quarantine was motivated by politics. Rizal and Techo. Another passenger which Rizal befriended on board the Belgic was Techo Suhiro. He was forced by the Japanese government to leave the country. Rizal in San Francisco. May 4, 1888, Rizal is permitted to go ashore. He registered at the Palace Hotel, which was then considered a first-class hotel in the city. Across the American continent. Rizal's diary recounts his travel observations as follows. May 6, 1888, Rizal left San Francisco for Oakland. May 7, he awoke and had a breakfast at Reno, Nevada. May 8, we are near Ogden. May 9, we are passing through the mountains and rocks along the river. The river is noisy and its noise gives life to lifeless territory. May 10, he woke up in Nebraska. May 11, he woke up near Chicago. May 12, a good Wagner car proceeding in a fine day. May 13, Rizal reached New York. Rizal stayed 3 days in this city, which he called the Big Town. He visited the scenic and historic places. May 16, he left New York for Liverpool on board the city of Rome. According to him, this steamer was the second largest ship in the world, the largest being the Great Eastern. Rizal's impression of America. Rizal had good and bad impression of the United States. Good impressions. The material progress of the country as shown in the great cities, huge farms, flourishing industries, and busy factories. The drive and energy of the American people. The natural beauty of the land. The high standard of living, the opportunities for better life offered the poor immigration. One bad impression Rizal had of America was the lack of racial equality. In 1890, 2 years after Rizal's visit in United States, Jose Alejandro had never been in America, so that one day he asked Rizal, "What impressions do you have of America?" Rizal answered, "America is the land par excellence of freedom, but only for the whites."
From the west, Rizal traveled a little bit to east to reach the Great Britain. It was May 16, 1888, when Rizal sailed to Liverpool. Liverpool is a port with commercial focus on the large metropolitan area, and he arrived there on May 24. A day after that, he reached London and stayed a couple of days at Dr. Antonio Regidor's home. He then boarded at Becket family, where he fell in love with Gertrude, the oldest daughter of his landlord. In June of the same year, Rizal made friends with Dr. Reinhold and his family. He was an expert in Malayan language. He also had in his house a good Filipiniana library. Our national hero was described by Ross as a pearl of a man, una perla de hombre in Malayan, as Ross was impressed by Rizal's character and learnings. While in London, Rizal copied Antonio de Morga's massive study of the Philippines, Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, a rare book that we can find in the British Museum, and later annotated it as a gift to the Filipinos. One of the few things to remember is when he became the honorary president of the Patriotic Society, Asociación La Solidaridad, or Solidaridad Association, and write articles for La Solidaridad. On his 10th-month stay in London, he had short visits in Paris, Madrid, and Barcelona. Leaving London for good, Rizal traveled to the south to reach Paris, France in March 1889. He shortly lived in the house of his friend Valentin Ventura before he transferred into a little room where he had 2 Filipino roommates, one of which was Jose Albert. In Paris, he frequented the Bibliothèque Nationale for his annotation of these successos. Furthermore, Rizal's life there was not economically good. He witnessed the Universal Exposition of Paris, with its greatest attraction, the Eiffel Tower. The exposition was the 100th anniversary of the storming of the Bastille, an event traditionally considered as the symbol for the beginning of the French Revolution. This attracted thousands of tourists. Therefore, all hotel accommodations were taken. It is extremely difficult for visitors like Rizal to find quarters to rest, added the fact that the French landlords take advantage of raising the rents of their rooms. Other than that, he formed the Kidlat Club, a temporary social club which brought together Filipinos who witnessed the exposition in Paris. He also organized Indios Bravos, an association which envisioned Filipinos recognized for being admirable, and the mysterious Redención de los Malayos, which aimed to propagate useful knowledge. He spent his spare hours on the house of his friends Juan Duna and his wife Paz Pardo de Tavera. Rizal survived because his compatriots Duna, Felix Hidalgo, and the Tavera brothers helped him. They lent and gave money for his daily needs. In return, He helped Juan Luna in his paintings and sketched the monkey and the turtle for Juan's wife. On Sundays, he attended the fencing lessons at the studio of Luna. Finally, Rizal finished and published his annotation of these successos.
So now we will go to Rizal's travel in Belgium. Rizal left Paris to go to Brussels, capital of Belgium, on January 28, 1890. The reason why he left Paris because of the cost of living was very high, and the gay social life in the city hampered his literary works. On February 2, 1890, Rizal accompanied by Jose Albert when he arrived to Brussels. They live in a modest boarding house 38 through Philip Champagne, run by the two Jacobo sisters, Suzanne and Marie, where Rizal had met in a transitory affair with Petite, a niece of a landlady. In his travel in Belgium, Rizal published articles, letters, and essays in La Solidaridad. On February 15, 1890, he published his letter Excelmo Señor Don Vicente Barrantes, and on March 31, on the same year, published his editorial article Filipinas and El Congreso. On April 15, 1890, he published his letter to his countryman sobre la nueva ortografía de la lengua Tagala, and also his article Simos Justos on the same date. And on April 30, 1890, published his editorial article Cosas de Filipinas. And on May 26, 1890, he published article Mos Sobres el Asunto de Negros. On July 15, 1890, he published his essay Sobre la Indolencia, his first installment, and also his editorial article Una Esperanza. And on July 31, 1890, his essay Sobre la Indolencia de los Filipinos, his second installment. All of his works, essay, articles published in Belgium for him to become busy, and he writes freely and contributing La Solidaridad using the pen names Dinas Alang and Laong Laan. On his continuation travel in Belgium, Rizal received a letter that made him worry. The first one is the Calamba agrarian trouble was getting worse, and the second one is the Dominican order filed a suit in court to dispossess the Rizal family of their lands in Calamba. So that on July 20, 1890, Rizal planned to go back to home in the face of suffering. He could not stay in Brussels writing his books while his parents, relatives, friends in PH were persecuted. And on July 29, 1890, Rizal informed Mariana Ponce of his departure for Madrid on the 1st of August and his arrival date on the 3rd and 4th of the same month. After knowing that his family were persecuted, he left Belgium and traveled to Madrid. On the same month of August, he traveled to Madrid along with his lawyer, Marcelo H. del Pilar. He tried to seek justice for his family but could not find anyone who could help him. His purpose also in Madrid is to study. On September 2, 1882, Rizal matriculated at Universidad Central de Madrid. He took medical clinic, surgical clinic, legal medicine, and obstetrical clinic. On November 2, 1882, in a letter, Rizal revealed to Paciano his plan of going back to Paris or Rome in June. He wanted to practice French in Paris and Italian in Rome, and to observe the custom of people in those cities. In evening, Rizal dreamed he was an actor dying in the scene, feeling intensely the shortage of his breath, the weakening of his strength, and the darkening of his sight. He woke up tired and breathless. He recollected the terrible dream he had the previous night. He also attended a birthday and a masquerade ball with his countryman in the next few months. On May 2, 1882, Rizal collected his past impression when he left the hometown Calamba. This day he attended a fiesta in Madrid. On May 26, 1883, in a letter, Rizal was informed by Pasiano of the 1,350 loaves of milled sugar produced from the Pansol farm, at the same time granting him to proceed to Paris as soon as he finished medical course in Madrid. On the last day of Rizal's travel in Madrid, on June 15, 1883, he left Madrid for Paris to spend his summer and to observe the big French city.
In Biarritz, Paris, and Brussels. On February 1891, Rizal arrived in Biarritz. To seek solace for his disappointments in Madrid, Rizal took a vacation on the resort city of Biarritz and the fabulous French River. He was a guest of the rich Bustard family at its winter residence, Villa Elida. Frustrated in romance, Rizal found consolation in writing. Evidently, while wooing Ned and enjoying many magnificent moonlight nights with her, he kept working on his second novel, which he began to write in Calamba, 1887. March 29, 1891, the eve of his departure from Biarritz to Paris, he finished the manuscript of El Filibusterismo. On March 30, 1891, Rizal bade farewell to the hospitable and friendly Bastard and proceeded to Paris by train. On April 4, 1891, Rizal wrote to his friend, Jose Basa, in Hong Kong from Paris, expressing his desire to go to the British colony and practice ophthalmologist in order to earn his living. Middle of April 1891, Rizal was back in Brussels. Since abdicating his leadership in Madrid in January 1891, owing to the intrigues of jealous compatriots, Rizal retired from the propaganda movement or Reform Crusade. On May 1, 1891, Rizal notified the propaganda in Manila to cancel his monthly allowance and devote the money to some better cause. Rizal's notification was contained in a letter addressed to Mr. A. L. Lorena, pseudonym of Judato Arellano. On May 30, 1891, the revision of the finished manuscript of El Filibusterismo was mostly completed. And on June 13, 1891, Rizal informed Basa that he was negotiating with the printing firm. In Ghent, Rizal was busy revising and polishing the manuscript of El Filibusterismo so that it could be ready for the press. Rizal had begun writing it in October 1887 while practicing medicine in Calamba. The following year, 1888, in London, he made some changes in the plot and corrected some chapters already written. He wrote more chapters in Paris and Madrid and finished the manuscript in Biarritz on March 29, 1891. It took him, therefore, 3 years to write his second novel. On July 5, 1891, Rizal left Brussels for Ghent, a famous university in Belgium. Rizal's reason for moving to Ghent were 1. The cost of printing in Ghent was cheaper than in Brussels. 2. To escape from the enticing attraction of Petite Suzanne. Rizal met two compatriots while in Ghent, Jose Alejandro from Pampanga and Edeberto Evangelista from Manila, both studying engineering in the world-famed University of Ghent. F. Mayer van Lopres, number 66 Vianderen Street, a printing shop that gave Rizal the lowest quotation for the publication of his novel, who was willing to print his book on installment basis. But on August 6, 1891, the printing of his book had to be suspended because Rizal could no longer give the necessary fund to the printer. Valentin Ventura, the savior of the Fili, or the El Filibusterismo, when Ventura learned of Rizal's predicament and immediately sent him the necessary funds. On September 18, 1891, El Filibusterismo came off the press. Rizal immediately sent on this date 2 printed copies to Hong Kong, one for Basa and other for Sixto Lopez, a prominent and influential leader of the Filipino independence movement. 2 weeks after, he visited Paris for the last time to bid goodbye for his friends and compatriots.
Jose Rizal in Hong Kong and Sandakan. October 1891, Rizal left Europe for Hong Kong on board the ship Melbourne, and he arrived on November 20, and he resided at Peninsula Terrace. During his first year, he befriended many of the city's leading luminaries, including the editor of the Hong Kong Telegram. He used the newspaper to continue his advocacy for Filipino rights, publishing several articles that slipped past government censors in the Philippines and reached an audience starved for dissenting voices. Rizal opened a medical clinic in the Aguilar Street with the help of his friend Dr. Lorenzo P. Marquez. He was practicing his profession and was a successful ophthalmic surgeon. Rizal successfully operated his mother's left eye that allowed her to read again. Almost a month after he arrived in Hong Kong, he was able to bring Don Francisco, Paciano, and Silvestre Ubaldo, and later Doña Teodora, Lucia, Josefa, and Trinidad to stay with him in the Hong Kong to escape the persecution of the friars. Every day after his medical practices of his clinic, he continued writing his third novel. It treated exclusively about the Tagalog customs, usages, virtues, and defects. Meanwhile, Paciano translated the Noli Me Tangere into Tagalog. Rizal sent a letter to Maria, his sister, telling his plan to establish a Filipino colony in North British Borneo. Rizal wrote a letter to Blumentritt in which he informed the latter of his plan of immigrating to Borneo, where he could establish another Calamba free from the abuses of the friars and the civil grounds. March 1892, Rizal went to Sandakan, East Malaysia, aboard Menon, to negotiate with British authorities concerning the founding of a Filipino colony in North Borneo, now called Sabah. Rizal's intention was to relocate his family there, and around 300 families from Calamba who were evicted and being persecuted by the Dominican friars for failure to pay the rent on the land they are tiling. On his arrival in Hong Kong on April 1892, Rizal obtained directly from Spanish Consul Governor-General Eulogio Despujol's position over the issue of Sava settlement. Despujol refused to answer the letter sent by Rizal asking his permission to allow the landless Filipinos to establish a colony in Sabah. He played safe by not entering into an agreement involving Rizal. Despujol considered the Sabah project anti-patriotic as the Philippines was short of labor to cultivate its land, and that he did not favor the establishment of Filipino community in Sabah.
Good day, everyone. This is Eliza Nicole de Guzman, and today I will discuss the second homecoming of Rizal and the founding of La Liga Filipina. June 1892, when Rizal returned in Manila, thus his second homecoming. Now, what is the reason why Rizal came back to the Philippines? He has three reasons. First, he wanted to confer about Borneo colonization project. Second, he wanted to establish the La Liga Filipina for the Filipino people to unite in a truest sense of unity and solidarity against violence and deprivation. And third, he would like to prove to Eduardo Late the criticism published against him in La Solidaridad has no basis, only pure speculation. This homecoming of Rizal, it marked as re-entry of the hazardous campaign for reforms. He said to the countrymen in Europe that the battlefield is in the Philippines, as he believed that fighting for Filipino liberties must be fought in the Philippines, not in Spain. On December 1981, he wrote his belief to Ferdinand Blumentritt. Blumentritt is the closest confidant of Rizal, even they only met once, and he translated the Noli Me Tangere in German. In the letter, it said that, "I believe La Solidaridad is not our battlefield. The fight is no longer in Madrid." June 26, 1892, the arrival of Rizal in Manila together with his sister, Lucia. So, at 4 o'clock, he went to Malacanang to seek audience with the Spanish Governor-General Eulogio Despujol. But he asked him to return at 7 o'clock. So, Rizal returned at 7 o'clock and he was able to discuss things with Governor-General Despujol. This is when he asked him to pardon his family, but he only gave pardon to his father and asked him to return on Wednesday. In June 27, he visited his friend in Central Luzon, and these friends of Rizal were a good patriots and a supporter of Rizal. He took this opportunity to greet them personally and discuss the problems affecting the people. So, when he returned on Wednesday for the interview with the Governor General Despujol, that he did not succeed to penalty exile for his family, but Governor General gave him the hope with regards to his sister and asked him to come back in Thursday. So Rizal went back on Thursday and talked about the Borneo. So the general was opposed to it, very much opposed, and told Rizal to come back on Sunday. So on Sunday, Governor General lifted the exile of his family, and Rizal thanked the Governor General Despujol. So, in founding of La Liga Filipina, after the interview with Governor General Despujol, Rizal attended a meeting of the Patriots at home of Doroteo Wangco, a Chinese-Filipino mestizo on Elias Street in Tondo, Manila. So, in this meeting, he explains the objectives of La Liga Filipina. So, La Liga Filipina, a civic league of Filipinos which desired to establish and note the economic life of people. The constitution of La Liga Filipina. First is to write the whole archipelago into one compact and homogeneous body. Second, mutual protection in every want and necessity. Third, defense against of all violence and injustice. Fourth, encourage of education, agriculture, and commerce. And fifth, study the application of reforms. This Constitution of La Liga Filipina was written in Hong Kong. Now, who are the qualified for the membership in La Liga Filipina? So, all Filipinos who have hearted the welfare of the fatherlands are qualified for the membership in La Liga Filipina. And every member has to pay 2 pesos for the entrance fee and 10 centavos monthly. So, during the interview with Governor General Despujol, he showed to Rizal the anti-friar leaflet. So, what is this anti-friar leaflet? So, this is the Probes Frailes, means poor friars, which was allegedly found in Lucia pillowcase, and Rizal denied having those leaflets in either his or Lucia's baggage. So this Pobre Frailes is a satire against the rich Dominican friars who amass fabulous riches contrary to their monastic vow of property. So, after this, Despujol ordered to imprison Rizal to Fort Santiago for almost 10 days. So, on July 14 at 12:30 a.m., he brought to steamer Cebu, passing through Mindoro and Panay, and the ship captain Del Gras handed him over to local Spanish commandant Ricardo Carniceo, and that signaled the start of Rizal's life as deportee in Dapitan. So Dapitan is a scenic place with fine beaches, perhaps a suiting place for balikbayan like Rizal. But Jose was not there as a tourist or a vacationer. He was an exile. Rizal really did travel to different countries and able to do anything just to open the minds of the Filipinos. He shows his love for the country, the Philippines, and even sacrifices his life for it. And I hope you learned a lot from this report. Thank you everyone and be safe.
I am Clarissa April Langbayan.
I am Laika May Mantupar.
I am Jamkailay Montiser.
I am Patricia Marie Beaker.
And I am Lorraine Astronomo.
I am Marnel M. Nicol.
I am Mary Crisel O. Antivero.
And I am Eliza Nicole M. de Guzman. And we are the Valientes.